Okay, here we go again, guys, being remote. And for the 8th grade, I'm just going to run through the Bill of Rights one more time. I'm going to go through the first 5 fairly quickly because we've already talked about those. And so I just want to be sure that you've got those. We are going to quiz on these. We're going to quiz on the first 5, then we're going to quiz on 6 through 10 tomorrow. You can use your notes, of course, while you're at home. And then when you come back, there will be a test of all 10. So you need to study them. They're really not hard. They're really easy. And I'm just gonna run through them again just to be sure everybody's good. So hopefully you can see it all right as we go through. Okay, the Bill of Rights lists our inalienable rights that have been given to us by God that man should not be able to mess with. Man should not be able to take these away from you. Everybody should have these simply because you're a human being, because you are made in the image of God. So keep that in mind as we go through it. It's important that you know them because in our country there are people that would like to see these thrown out. They would like to see groups of people, especially Christians, lose these amendments. So we're going to run through them. We're going to talk a little bit about the original meaning of our founding fathers, what they meant when they did these. But anyway, just let's get started. They were added to the Constitution in 1791, and if you remember, the definition for an amendment is an addition, or a change to the Constitution. So after the Constitution was written, ratified, put into play by 1789, the Founding Fathers came back and said, we must have a Bill of Rights. Anyway, okay, quickly. The First Amendment has many things in it. These are the basic ones that I want you to know. And I've already given these to you, but the acronym RAPS, R-R-A-P-P-S. Freedom of and from religion, because those are different. Of religion means you're free to worship as you please, free exercise. The government cannot squash your freedom to worship as you please, as long as you're not violating a law, of course, like torturing animals or something like that. Freedom from religion, you're protected from an established religion. You have the freedom to assemble peacefully. You have the freedom to petition the government for a redress of your grievances, which all that means is you can complain and not be hauled away in the dark of night because you've complained to the government. We take a lot of these things for granted, but other countries don't even have these. Freedom of the press, that the press means the media. NBC, ABC, Fox News, CNN, all of those are free to say and print whatever they want. They can lie. They can not tell you the whole truth. There is such a thing as fake news. They can make stuff up, or they can withhold information from you. And that's our job then to research, to know a little bit more about what's going on than just what they first give you the impression. But we do have a free press, but that's designed to protect us. All of these rights and liberties are designed to protect us, especially from an overbearing government that might step in and try to take away our liberties. So this protects us from government censorship, freedom of the press, and freedom of speech is the last one in this list. Freedom of religion, from religion, assembly, press, petition, and speech. All right, RAPS. Second Amendment just simply has to do with the right to keep and bear arms. You have the right to own weaponry for your protection. Now, as a minor, M-I-N-O-R, you don't have some of these rights yet, but you will as you get older. And the Second Amendment, there's a lot of people that would like to see this done away with, but it's in our Constitution. Our Constitution is the supreme law of the land. Doesn't override the Bible, of course, but the Bible tells us to respect those in authority over us. So we are supposed to acknowledge what the government says, but the government is held responsible by the Constitution. So if the government is not following the Constitution, then even Thomas Jefferson said that it was our place to challenge that, to revolt against that. Okay, we have the right to legally bear arms. The Third Amendment is not one we even consider much anymore. I don't think we would. No soldier shall in time of peace be housed in our houses without our consent. Of course, like I told you before in class, I believe they wouldn't want to be living in our houses anymore. They would want to come to the church. They would want to live in, stay all together someplace in a large facility like the church, like a hotel. But in times of peace, there is no quartering of troops in our homes. And of course, the founding fathers, the guys that wrote this, they had directly experienced this when the redcoats from England came to live in their homes right before the American Revolution. So no quartering of troops in Amendment number 3. The Fourth Amendment deals with searches and seizures. The police cannot search you, your property, your car, so on and so forth, without a search warrant. They have to prove that there's a reasonable cause, that you have something that's illegal, and they have to state where they're going to search for it and what they're searching for. And that is no illegal searches and seizures. Search warrant is required in Amendment number 4. Amendment number 5 has many things, and I've shortened it for you like this. Hopefully you can write this down. These are the 5 things in 5 that I want you to remember. You are guaranteed the right to a grand jury indictment. And I went through this in class, but for those of you that have been home for several days, you may not have gotten this. But the grand jury, there's 2 types of juries that we're talking about in this regard. There's the grand jury and the petit jury. The grand jury, it's grand because it's large. Okay, the petit jury is the petit jury because it's petite, it's small. So the grand jury is large. Usually there's about 20 people, usually 21, 22 people in a grand jury. The petit jury is much smaller. It's 12 for a criminal case, plus alternates. But the grand jury does not, this is not the jury you see when you're watching your TV shows that shows Law and Order and stuff like that. The grand jury are kind of behind the scenes jury. They consider all the evidence. They do listen to the witnesses. They consider whether or not the person could be guilty. And because of that, they say, well, there should be a trial. So if they choose to have a trial, the grand jury will be the one that decides that. And they pass down an indictment, which I'm not going to require you to know that right now, but you would be indicted or formally charged with a crime if the grand jury so decided. So, but that's just a protection. Remember, the idea is for no one who is truly innocent to be found guilty. So our system is set up in such a way so that the guilty really have many more advantages than perhaps they should have. But it's meant to be that way so that no innocent people, hopefully, would ever be found guilty. So you are given a grand jury provision in Amendment number 5. Then no double jeopardy. It literally says that you will not be twice put in jeopardy of losing life or limb as a result of the trial. But we've shortened it to no double jeopardy. All that means is you cannot be tried twice for the same crime. If you've been found innocent, it's done. You cannot be tried again for that crime. And number 5, the third one, says you don't have to testify against yourself. You've heard people exclaim, I'm going to plead the 5th. I'm not going to tell on myself. That's what that means. You do not have to tell on yourself. When they ask you if you did it, you can just sit there and smile. You don't have to tell on yourself. And then there's due process. Due process, all that means is there's a process that has to happen in order for the legal system to work.
There is a way in which it has to follow, and that process must be followed to the T, or things can go awry. So, due process of law. In other words, if you're arrested, you're read your rights, you are taken before a judge, you're told what you're accused of. You have to be, like I said, you have to be habeas corpus. You have to be brought before a judge. You have to be allowed an attorney. I mean, there's all kinds of things that has to happen to a person who's accused of a crime, and that is known as due process. And then eminent domain. Eminent domain is in the Fifth Amendment, and I have no idea why, because I don't think it connects, but maybe I'm just not understanding it properly. But eminent domain means that the government can take your property. If they are going to build a road, and that road is going to run right through your living room, then you probably do want to move, because they're going to build that road whether you like it or not. So they have the right to come in and buy your property. But the protection here is that they can take your property, but they have to justly compensate you for it, which means they have to pay you what it's worth. They can't give you less than what it's worth. They probably could give you more than what it's worth, but for the most part, they cannot give you less than what it's worth. These are the rights of the accused. And again, I've got them little pictures to help us remember. Due process. Plead the fifth. You don't have to tell on yourself. Double jeopardy. You have the right to a grand jury indictment, and eminent domain, where they can take your property if they so need to. Now, and then they can't take it just for anything. I mean, they can't. You could protest. You could go up against it if they were taking it to, I don't know, to build a mall or do something like that. But to build a road or to build something that is going to give the public more freedom, more benefits, then they might take it from you for that. Okay, amendment number 6. There's 6 things I want you to know in 6. There's actually a few more, but let's just learn these for now. In number 6, you're guaranteed the right to a speedy and public trial. Now, of course, those of you that have been in class all week, this is kind of where you could start your video, because we've already done the first 5. So I just went over those for those that haven't been in class, and maybe just as review for those of you that have been in class. Speedy and public trial. If you are arrested and accused of a crime, they can't throw you in jail and then, come back 5 years later and say, we remember that you're here, and now it's time for your trial. It has to be reasonably speedy, and it has to be public, so that they cannot haul you off into like a kangaroo court or a star chamber where they are just secretly accusing you and getting rid of you. That's what they do in other countries where they are led by dictators and tyrants. Your trial has to be speedy. It has to be open to the public. Any of you can go to a trial. If you know there's a trial going on up at the courthouse, you can walk right in. You can sit down. You can listen to it. As a matter of fact, in the 12th grade, I'll probably take you guys to see a trial at the courthouse. But you can't, the rules, you can't go in and disrupt things. You can't go in and upset things. You have to sit still and listen. I had one time a class where, this was when cell phones were even new, but I had 2 students that had cell phones, and they were sitting there texting each other during the trial, and the bailiff came over and took their phones away from them. So, I mean, you have to be still. You have to pay attention. You have to listen. But anyway, they're public. They're open to the public. You are guaranteed a trial by jury. What's a jury? A jury is a group of people that will consider your case and decide whether or not you're guilty or innocent. And this beats the way they used to try people many, many years ago, and especially in medieval Europe, when they used to try people by, everything was kind of based on superstition, and And so it wasn't very, it wasn't a very fair method of trying people. We'll talk about that more later. But a trial by jury, a group of people, different people. You want a jury that's mixed up of all kinds of different people. Maybe someone who's retired, someone who's just staying at home, maybe someone who is a teacher, maybe someone who works at Walmart, maybe someone who does construction for a living, maybe someone who is, oh, just varieties. You just want a variety of people because everybody will bring to the discussion some other new piece of information, experience, education. That's good. That's what we want. I've sat on several trials as a juror, and it really helped sometimes to have another person's perspective on what happened that I would not have even thought about, and maybe I was able to contribute in the same way. So probably all of you at one time will be called to jury duty, and if possible, go and do it, because now I know it won't happen while you're in high school, but eventually. Don't try to get out of it. See this as a public service. This is as important as perhaps even serving in the military. I think it's just as important because it's what keeps our process working, and it keeps it fair because you bring all these different people in to hopefully give a fair and just decision. But anyway, trial by jury, you're guaranteed that in Amendment number 6. The trial must take place in the area where it happened. That means that's the jurisdiction. And I would want you to know that term. I know it's a big term, but you can do it. The jurisdiction is simply the area over which you have authority. And I like to use the example of my classroom. When you guys are in my classroom, this is the area over which I have authority. I don't have any authority over Miss Shoemate's classroom. I don't have any authority in Miss Matherly's office. I don't have any authority in, say, in the gym when the gym teacher is, I can't remember now who's doing gym this year. But anyway, when the gym teacher is having class, I don't have any authority in that gym unless I bring my kids in, and then I have authority over my kids. But what I'm trying to say is the area over which you have authority, that's your jurisdiction. So in my classroom, this is my jurisdiction. Miss Shoemate couldn't come in and start telling the kids what to do. That's why you'll notice when a teacher walks into another classroom, I do this and other teachers do it as well. They'll say, Miss Huffman, do you mind if I speak to him for a minute? I mean, that shows respect. That's what we do for each other. Now, in the hallway, we all have jurisdiction. And if Mr. Patton or Miss Matherly wanted to come into my classroom and take over, they have jurisdiction because they have jurisdiction over the whole school. But a jurisdiction is simply the area over which you have an authority. And so in Amendment number 6, your trial, if you were accused of a crime, would take place within the area where it happened. And the reason for that, again, our founding fathers, when they're right before the American Revolution, if someone was arrested for a crime in the colonies, oftentimes they were hauled back to England for their trial. So that wasn't very fair. And that's why they put it in there. They knew it was important. You have the right to bring witnesses that will say you're a good person if you can find such a person. You can bring witnesses in your favor that will say this person would never have done whatever it is you're accused of. You also have the right to see the people that are testifying against you. You have the right to confront witnesses against you. That way nobody can do it anonymously. Nobody can just phone it in and say, I saw so-and-so beating up on so-and-so. You can't do that. You have the right to confront the witnesses testifying against you. Now sometimes that may change a little bit if there's a juvenile involved. They might do a video of the juvenile testifying and then play the video or what have you. But there are some protections for people that are still classified as minors. And you have the right to an attorney. And even this has changed over time because of some court cases, and we'll we'll look at those later on, where if you can't afford an attorney, one will be provided for you. So all of these have changed over time in different ways, mostly for the better, mostly designed to really protect the innocent. Okay, so the rights of the accused. In number 6, you are guaranteed a right to a trial by jury. You are guaranteed a due process, speedy and public trial. I don't want to confuse you. Due process is in 5. Remember, due process is not in 6. This is speedy and public trial, okay? You have the right to bring in people that will testify in your favor. You have the right to have it done within your jurisdiction. This is just showing different areas of jurisdiction. You have the right to an attorney. And you have the right to confront witnesses that are testifying against you. So that's all rights of the accused. Amendment number 7. Okay, this is number 7. This also deals with court cases, but it's a little bit different. This deals with court cases between individuals or between an individual and a company. Someone is suing someone else for whatever. I mean, you could use all kinds of examples here. Take 2 students in the classroom. One might sue another. If in the Constitution it says that you can sue one another if it involves $20 or more. Now, of course, that would be foolish today. I mean, back in 1791, $20, that's a considerable amount of money, and that means that you can have a trial by jury if it's $20 or more. But today, well, you wouldn't want to sue anybody over $20. You're going to pay an attorney to represent you thousands of dollars in order to take something to court like that. And that's why I put the picture of Judge Judy up there. A lot of people now, if it's a minor, if it's $2,000, they're going to take it maybe before Judge Judy, or they're going to let it go altogether, because that you're going to end up paying much more in attorney's fees and legal fees and what have you than you would getting back whatever it is that you feel like you're suing somebody for. But anyway, so a lot of people take their cases for entertainment purposes through Judge Judy, and they have to agree that they will abide by whatever she decides. But whenever you have an individual suing another individual, or even a company suing a company, or an individual suing a company, that's a plaintiff versus a defendant. Whenever you see this, the first name in the legal case, and you do need to remember this. We won't do a lot with it this year, but now as we go on through other years and we study more court cases, you'll need to know this. The first one mentioned is always the person that's doing the suing. They're the suer. That's not a word, but the plaintiff and versus the person, of course, who is defending himself. And so Amendment 7 deals with civil cases. I think, yeah. In civil cases, individuals have the right to a trial by jury if the amount involved is $20 or more. But again, that would be foolish today, because $20, you're going to pay a whole lot more than that to get back something worth $20. So write that down. If you need to pause it so you can write it down, go ahead. Amendment number 8, excessive bail shall not be required, nor excessive fines imposed, nor cruel and unusual punishments inflicted. If you can just imagine, first of all, what is bail? Bail is money you pay to stay out of jail until your trial. Okay? Bail is what they use to come after you if you don't show up. So when the trial happens, they'll take that bail money and they will use that to track you down, or supposedly that's what that's for. But if your crime is small, then your bail has to be small. If your crime is huge, then your bail can be huge. For instance, if you're caught shoplifting at Walmart and you've stolen a notebook and a pack of pencils, well, then your bail can't be $100,000, because that just doesn't match. You have to, It has to match. And also excessive fines. They can't, again, if they were to fine you, most of you are not driving yet, at least not legally. If they were to fine you, you get a speeding ticket. Your parents get a speeding ticket. You know, they're probably not going to fine you $1 million. You know, that they can't fine you an excessive amount of money is what this is saying. So this is another protection for us. No cruel and unusual punishment. They can't torture you to get you to confess. They can't torture you after they found you guilty. I mean, and in colonial days, in the early days, they did sometimes. I mean, this was not uncommon to put somebody in the stocks and throw rotten tomatoes and food at them and humiliate them. I mean, this was a form of punishment in early colonial days. And so, you know, they didn't want to do that. They didn't want to have that. They didn't want to charge excessive fines or bail. And so we're protected from that in Amendment number 8. No cruel and unusual punishment. And then Amendment number 9. Amendment number 9 and 10. They're really simple if you just break it down to the bare bones. But in a way, they're also kind of complicated. If you can just keep in mind that 9 is about rights. 9 is about liberties. 9 is about freedoms that we have that are not mentioned in the Constitution. For example, you have the right to move from Texas to New York if you want to. Of course, you don't live in Texas, you live in West Virginia. So you have the right to move from West Virginia to Texas or from West Virginia to Virginia. Although why you'd want to do that, I don't know. But anyway, you have the right to do that. Just because a right is not mentioned in the Constitution, our founding fathers were afraid that someday there would be a tyrannical, oppressive government in America. But they were afraid that it was going to get to that. And so they threw this amendment in, because this basically is like a grab bag amendment. This basically says, if we forgot a basic right that people should have, this is where we're going to throw it in. Now, always people abuse them, okay? They say, well, the Constitution implies that we have a right to privacy. Really doesn't say that anywhere in the Constitution, but it does kind of imply that we have basically a right to privacy. But some people take that to say, well, then if as part of my privacy I want to have an abortion, that's okay, because Amendment number 9 doesn't say I can't do that. Okay, well, okay, you could throw in a lot of things that you want to do in the privacy of your life, and that would really be illegal or unconstitutional. But Amendment number 9, you've always got people that take advantage no matter what happens. But Amendment number 9 is, again, it's about rights that are not listed. That's what enumerated means. Enumeration means numbered and listed. So the enumeration in the Constitution of certain rights shall not be understood to deny or disparage others retained by the people. So you have the right to get married, not at 13, but you have the right to get married. You have the right to move. You have the right to go to the school of your choice if you can afford it. You have the right to do so many things. To go on vacation every year. I mean, just because it isn't listed and numbered doesn't mean you don't have it. And Amendment number 10 is very similar, except that it deals with government powers, okay, where it talks about government powers that are not delegated, not given to the United States. Now, you've got to realize, and we talked about this with the constitutional principles, our government is divided up. That whole idea of federalism. We have a federal government in Washington, D.C., then we have a state government in Charleston, West Virginia, then we have a county government, Mercer County, then we have a city government, Princeton or Athens or Bluefield or wherever you live. Okay, So the powers not delegated, not given to the United States, that's the federal government, by the Constitution, nor prohibited, not allowed, by the Constitution to the states, are automatically reserved. They are protected, reserved to the states, respectively, first, or to the people. So, in other words, what this is saying, if there's a question about a governmental power, it does not first go, really, if it's not given to the United States government, the federal government in D.C., it should first go then to the state government. And then if that doesn't work, it should go to the people of the states. So this is basically trying to limit the power of the federal government in many different ways. But see, our federal government, as of, the last 100 years, but especially the last 50, it has increasingly become more and more powerful. But technically, Amendment number 10 should put some restrictions on that. But of course, the federal government doesn't want people to know that. That's why we study. That's why we learn. That's why we learn about our government. Now, you're probably questioning, this is West Virginia history. Why in the world are we studying the U.S. Constitution? Well, in your textbook, it has a section on government. And so what we're doing right now is we're studying the U.S. Constitution and the U.S. Bill of Rights. We're also going to study, not in that great a detail, but we're also going to study the West Virginia Constitution. And we are West Virginia citizens. I think all of you are in West Virginia. But we also, are U.S. citizens. And so we need to know this stuff. And I'll be honest with you, from now until you graduate from here, I'm going to beat you over the head with the 10 amendments in the Bill of Rights, because you've got to know these. You've got to know these. You've got to walk away from here with the ability to understand that you have some certain civil liberties that have been given to you not by man, not by even the United States of America, but by God. They're inalienable. They are just your basic freedoms. People in the entire world should have these. If they don't, it's because there is a person or a group that has taken them away. And we don't want them taken away. We want to keep them. They're very, very, very important. Okay, well, that's enough for today. That's more than enough. Usually on Friday, we do the quizzes on the counties, but I don't think we're going to tomorrow. Okay, we're too much into the Bill of Rights right now. And so what we're going to do tomorrow, there will be on LMS tomorrow, Friday, the 1st of October, there will be on LMS a quiz, and it will deal with amendments, I guess 6 through 10. I'd like to do the whole thing, but we won't. We'll just do 6 through 10, and you can use your notes. So basically, you can cheat. But guys, you got to know this. Study it. This is just kind of what I'm trying to do. Is I want to get this into your head. So study it. Do what you can. When you come back, there will be a test on all 10 of them. And there won't be any notes. No notes. Just open brain. So tomorrow, be ready for that quiz. And then next week, we're moving on. We might do something West Virginia-ish next week.